Have you ever found yourself reading a sentence that just clicks?
Yeah.
You know, suddenly a complex idea, maybe something tricky, becomes crystal clear.
Oh, absolutely. Or the other way around, maybe, where you're trying to explain something really precisely
Yeah,
and you feel like your words just aren't quite hitting the mark, leaving people a bit vague.
exactly. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something that can really help with that. We're looking at the hidden architects of precision in language, relative clauses,
Yeah.
and their partners, relative pronouns.
It's so true. They're way more than just grammar rules you memorize. They're the actual tools you use to add nuance, specific detail. They make communication richer.
Right. They take simple sentences, maybe even choppy ones, and turn them into these informative statements where the full meaning, the exact point, comes across.
Yeah, without them, honestly, language would be a lot less efficient. So many important distinctions would just get lost.
So that's our mission today, really. This deep dive is all about mastering relative clauses and those trusty relative pronouns. We want to unpack what they are, how they work, and crucially, how you can use them to communicate with, well, more clarity and sophistication.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe. A way to make your sentences richer, more exact.
Exactly. And we're drawing our insights today from a really solid guide called Mastering Relative Clauses and Pronouns.
It's great because it's not just theory. It's packed with practical examples, clear rules, and it talks about the common pitfalls, too.
Oh, that's useful. The things that trip people up.
Yeah, even advanced speakers sometimes. So we'll walk through the rules, but also look at how to avoid those mistakes using insights from the exercises in the guide. It's about practical application.
Okay, fantastic.
Sure.
Let's get into it then. Starting with the basics, the building blocks, understanding relative pronouns.
Right. So at their core, relative clauses. Think of them like mini sentences.
Many sentences, okay.
They don't stand alone, right? They attach themselves to a main sentence, and their job is to give extra specific info about a noun or noun phrase that's already there.
Okay, so they add detail to something already mentioned.
Exactly. Like adding a specific feature to your main point. And the thing that connects this extra info back to the noun, that's the relative pronoun. It's the link.
Got it. The connector.
Now, here's a super important rule right off the bat. This is a really common mistake.
Okay, what is it?
When you use a relative pronoun to start this mini sentence, this relative clause, you do not put another pronoun inside that clause to refer back to the noun again.
Ah, okay. Because the relative pronoun is already doing that job.
Precisely. It's a substitute. It's there to stop you from being redundant. Putting another pronoun in there is just, well, it's grammatically wrong and sounds clunky.
Right. Our source gives a good example of this. You'd say, why not install lights which have a timer? The which refers to lights, and it's the subject of have in that little clause.
Clean and simple.
Yeah. But what you definitely shouldn't say is, why not install lights which they have a timer?
Ugh, yeah. That they is just extra baggage. The which already stands in for lights. Adding they is just repeating the idea.
So the relative pronoun is doing the heavy lifting there. It doesn't need backup.
Exactly. Nailing that one rule can make a huge difference to how correct and smooth your sentences sound.
Okay, so let's meet the main players, the relative pronouns themselves. Who, which, that, where, when, whose, and why.
A whole team.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And each one has a very specific job, like a well-organized team, actually.
Okay, let's start with who. This one seems fairly straightforward.
It is. Who is exclusively for people. That's its job. Identifying or adding info about a person.
Like the example, please welcome Mike Bowers, who's going to talk to us. Who clearly points back to Mike Bowers, the person. You wouldn't use which there.
Never. It has to be who. Now, you might sometimes see whom, especially in very formal writing.
Oh, yes, whom. Particularly if it's the object in the clause, like the person whom I met. But honestly, in most everyday English, especially spoken, who does the job even when it's technically the object, like the person who I met? It's becoming much more common.
Okay, so who is the main one for people? What about which?
Which is the counterpart for things. Objects, animals, ideas, concepts, even whole situations sometimes. If it's not a person, which is generally your go-to.
The source example was, these are dangerous if you live in a flat, which is in a large high-rise building, which modifies flat, a thing.
Correct. Keeping who for people and which for things separate is fundamental for clarity.
Got it. Now, this one seems a bit different.
That. The versatile one. Yes, that is kind of a flexible friend because it can refer to both people or things.
Oh, interesting. So it overlaps with both who and which.
It does, yeah. This makes it super common, especially in spoken English or more informal writing. It often sounds a bit more natural, maybe less stuffy than who or which.
The examples show this well. Find someone that can check on your home, that for a person,
Mm-hmm.
and store away any objects that could become damaging missiles. That for things.
See, it works for both. It's very widely used.
And you mentioned it's common in spoken English. Why is that?
I think it just flows a bit more smoothly sometimes, particularly in defining clauses, which we'll get to. It feels a bit more direct, less formal, maybe.
There's a catch, right?
Right.
You mentioned a limitation.
Ah, yes, the big one. And this is absolutely critical to remember that cannot be used in non-defining relative clauses.
Okay, non-defining. We'll definitely need to unpack what those are properly.
We will, but just flag that now. That is super useful, but it has strict limits. It's not allowed in those non-defining situations.
Got it. So that is versatile but restricted. What's next? Where?
Where, nice and easy. It refers to places, physical locations, sometimes more metaphorical ones too.
Like, this is your home, the place where you keep your treasured possessions. Where points to the place.
Exactly. Or even something like, we reached a point where we had to decide. It refers to a metaphorical place or stage.
Makes sense. And when? I'm guessing that's for.
Times. You got it. Specific moments, periods, occasions.
Program them to come on at times when you would normally be home. When specifies the times. Adds that temporal context.
Perfect. Now, whose? This one's a bit different. It's about possession.
Possession. Like ownership.
Exactly. Whose shows ownership or a relationship. It's like a neat way of saying of whom or of which.
Ah, okay. So instead of saying the person, the job of whom involves travel.
You'd say you're a person whose job involves a lot of travel. Much smoother. Whose connects job back to person showing possession.
And it works for things too.
Yes. He lives in an old house whose roof needs repairing. The roof belongs to the house. Whose shows that link. It's very efficient.
Very useful. Okay, last one. Why?
Why has a very specific use case. You use it after the word reason or reasons.
Only after reason.
Primarily, yes. It introduces the explanation or the cause.
Like, there are often very good reasons why one house is burgled and another is not. The why explains the reasons.
Exactly. It links the reason to the explanation. Very direct.
Okay, so that's our core team of relative pronouns, each with its specific job.
That's the foundation. But just before we move on, it's worth mentioning something a bit more advanced alternatives to relative clauses,
Oh,
like shortcuts.
sort of. Particularly in writing. You often see participle clauses used instead of full relative clauses. They can make your writing sound more concise, more sophisticated. A stylistic choice, really.
Participle clauses. You mean using the ing or aed form of the verb?
Exactly. They basically condense a relative clause, especially one with a be verb, by just using the participle.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of saying the man who is sitting beside me, you might just say the man sitting beside me.
Ah, I see. You drop the who is.
Right. Or for a passive example, instead of the food which is kept in the fridge, you could say the food kept in the fridge, uses the past participle kept. That does sound more concise. Where would you typically see these?
They're quite common in more formal writing, like news reports, academic papers. They pack more information into fewer words, creating a denser, maybe more elegant style.
So like the company manufacturing these parts instead of the company that manufactures.
Precisely. Or the results published yesterday instead of the results which were published. It's a neat trick for making your writing flow better and sound a bit more advanced. Definitely a grammar extra worth knowing about.
Good to know. Okay, so we have the pronouns and these participle alternatives. Now let's tackle that really crucial distinction you mentioned earlier. The difference between defining and non-defining clauses. You said this massively affects meaning.
It absolutely does. Getting this wrong can completely change what your sentence implies. It's vital for precision. Let's start with defining relative clauses.
Okay, defining. What defines them?
Their job is to provide information that is essential to identify which noun you're talking about. Without the defining clause, you wouldn't know specifically who or what is meant. The meaning would be ambiguous.
So they define the noun, like putting a label on.
Exactly like a label or a name tag. If I say, the book is on the table, you might think, okay, which book? But if I say, the book that I borrowed from the library is on the table, that clause that I borrowed from the library is essential. It defines which book.
Got it. The source example was, Store away any objects that could become damaging missiles if it gets windy. Without that clause, the instruction store away any objects is way too broad.
Right. You'd ask, which objects? The defining clause narrows it down. It's not just extra fluff. It's identifying information. It answers, which one?
Okay, essential information. And there was something about omitting the pronoun in these.
Yes, this is a really key feature of defining clauses and something that makes spoken English flow. You can often leave out the relative pronoun, who, which, or that, but only if it refers to the object of the verb inside the relative clause.
Object, not subject. How do you tell?
If the noun the pronoun refers back to is the one receiving the action in the mini-clause, it's the object. If it's the one doing the action, it's the subject.
Okay, example time.
Right. Maybe there's a neighbor that you can ask. Here, neighbor is the object of ask. You ask the neighbor, so you can drop that. Or who, maybe there's a neighbor you can ask. Sounds perfectly natural.
Okay, I see. Another one.
The report, which that I wrote, is finished. You wrote the report. Report is the object of wrote, so you can say, the report I wrote is finished. Very common.
But you can't omit it if it's the subject.
Absolutely not. This is the crucial bit people get wrong. Look at, in the evening, a house that's very dark can really stand out. Here, house is the subject of is. The house is dark. That is the subject pronoun in the clause. You cannot say a house very dark can stand out. It just falls apart grammatically.
So if the pronoun is the doer in the clause, it stays.
It must stay. Think. The dog that chased the cat? The dog did the chasing. That is the subject, so it stays. But the dog that I saw the dog. Dog is the object, so that can go.
Got it. Subject stays, object can go. And what about punctuation for defining clauses?
Simple. No commas. Ever. The lack of commas signals that the information is essential, tightly bound to the noun it's defining.
No commas. AK's essential info. Okay, now let's flip to the other side. Non-defining relative clauses.
Right. These are the opposite in function. They add extra non-essential information. The main sentence already makes sense and clearly identifies the noun without this clause.
It's like bonus information. An interesting aside.
Exactly. Think of it like adding a descriptive detail that's nice to know but isn't needed to understand who or what you're talking about. The noun is already specific enough.
The source had that great comparison example. I applied to the university, which is located in the center of the city, with the comma.
Yes. The comma signals that which is located is extra info. It implies we already know which university, maybe it's the only one nearby, or we mentioned it before. Its location is just an added fact.
But if you take the comma out, I applied to the university, which is located in the center of the city, no comma.
It becomes a defining clause. Suddenly, it means there are multiple universities, and you're specifying the one in the city center as opposed to others elsewhere.
Wow. That one little comma completely changes the meaning.
It really does. It's a powerful piece of punctuation in this context. It shows why understanding this difference isn't just grammar for grammar's sake. It's about controlling meaning.
And you said non-defining clauses are more common in writing.
Generally, yes. Writing allows for that slightly more structured addition of extra detail, and there are some strict rules for them.
Right.
Rule number 1, you absolutely cannot use that.
No, that allowed in non-defining clauses, period.
Correct. You must use who or whom formally for people and which for things. So, in the example, the burglars got in through the kitchen window, which the owners had forgotten to shut. You can never say the owners. It's grammatically incorrect here.
Okay, no, what else?
Commas are essential, mandatory. They fence off the non-defining clause from the main sentence.
Right. Might get 2 commas if the clause is in the middle of the sentence.
Like setting it off in parentheses. Mr. Smith, who was my primary school teacher, got married last week. The clause, who was my primary school teacher, is extra info about Mr. Smith nestled between commas. The main sentence, Mr. Smith got married last week, works fine alone.
And if the clause comes at the end?
Then just 1 comma before it. A letterbox can become full of uncollected letters, which is a great help to a burglar. The comma separates the main idea from the additional comment at the end.
Okay, so commas are a must. Any other rules?
Yes, unlike defining clauses, you cannot omit the relative pronoun in a non-defining clause. It must stay.
Always keep the who or which.
Always. So, my new house, which I have just redecorated, is much larger. You can't say, my new house I've just redecorated. The which has to be there.
Got it. No, that must have commas, must keep the pronoun.
There's one more really interesting use, especially for which in non-defining clauses,
Oh.
which can sometimes refer back not just to a single noun, but to the entire idea expressed in the main clause before it.
Wow. Okay. How does that work?
It allows you to comment on the whole situation. Like,
Well,
some people think it's just a matter of locking all the doors, which is fine as long as there are no nasty storms. Here, which doesn't refer to doors, it refers to the whole idea thinking it's just a matter of locking the doors.
I see. It's a comment on the entire preceding statement.
Exactly. It connects the thoughts logically. Another one. He decided to climb the mountain alone, which turned out to be a terrible mistake, which refers to the entire action of deciding to climb alone. It's a very neat way to add commentary or consequence.
That's a sophisticated use. Very powerful. Okay, let's quickly sum up the key differences then, because this feels really central.
Absolutely. Defining clauses.
Yeah.
Their job is to identify. They answer, which one?
They can use that for people or things.
You can sometimes omit the pronoun if it's the object.
And critically, no commas.
Right. Non-defining clauses.
Yeah.
They give extra non-essential info.
Cannot use that. Must use who or which.
You cannot omit the pronoun.
And you must use commas to separate them.
Nail that distinction and you've unlocked a huge level of precision in English. You can really control the nuances of meaning.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got the basics and the big distinction. What about some of the finer points, the nuances of everyday usage? Like prepositions. That often trips people up.
Oh, definitely. Preposition placement with relative clauses is a classic signpost distinguishing maybe more formal from informal styles or even native-like fluency.
So how does it work?
Well, in everyday conversation, informal writing, the preposition usually goes right at the end of the relative clause. This generally sounds the most natural.
Like the example, you may have a neighbor that you can rely on. The on is at the end.
Exactly. Or that's the book which I was telling you about. About sits comfortably at the end. Trying to move it earlier in casual speech often sounds quite stiff or overly formal.
Okay, so preposition at the end for informal style. What about formal?
In more formal contexts, academic writing, very formal speeches, you can place the preposition before the relative pronoun, specifically before which or whom.
So this is where whom might appear more often.
Precisely. It creates a more elegant, maybe more complex sounding structure. Instead of the universities that I applied to, you might write the universities to which I applied.
Sounds much more formal.
It does. And for people, my boss, for whom I have worked for over 30 years, is retiring. Placing for before whom is standard in this formal style. Saying my boss, who I've worked for 30 years, is fine informally, but the for whom structure has a different weight.
So it's about choosing the right style for the situation. Knowing both options gives you flexibility.
Absolutely. It lets you adapt your language. Now, related to natural usage, let's touch on some common collocations, words that often appear together with relative pronouns. Spotting these patterns helps your English sound more idiomatic.
Good idea. What are some common ones?
Well, the phrase the one is very frequently followed by a defining relative clause. We use it to single out a specific person or thing.
Right, like highlighting. Examples were, he's the one who suggested I became a teacher.
Pinpointing that specific person.
My father's the one that taught me piano. Identifying him specifically.
And that house is the one where I grew up? Specifying the exact house.
Yeah.
The one plus relative clause is a very natural, common way to identify something uniquely.
Okay, that's useful. Any others?
Yes, where is often used after certain abstract nouns indicating a state or point in time, like situation, stage, or point.
To describe the nature of that situation or stage.
Exactly. It sounds very natural. For example, we were in a situation where there were no easy solutions. Where describes the kind of situation.
Or, I'm almost at the stage where I'm ready to quit.
Defines the stage. And I've reached the point where I feel I should just give up. It clearly defines that point or state you're in. Using where here is much smoother than trying to say something like the point at which I feel in most contexts.
These collocations really show how relative clauses are woven into natural speech patterns.
Definitely. They're not just isolated grammar points. They're part of the fabric of fluent communication.
Okay, this is all great theory and explanation. Now let's really see it in action. Let's talk about the exercises from the source material. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Applying the knowledge.
Absolutely. Looking at the exercises helps solidify understanding and shows how these rules actually work in practice. It moves from knowing to doing.
So the first one was a listening task about home safety. The idea was to listen for the relative clauses being used naturally.
Right. And a good tip from that is, when you're listening to English, actively tune your ear to those little connecting words, who, which, that, where, when. They often signal that extra descriptive bit is coming.
Like in the exercise answers. An area where there are a lot of tall trees. That where immediately signals location detail.
Exactly. Or objects that could become damaging missiles. That identifies the specific type of object.
Someone that can check using that for a person, which is common.
And lights which have a timer, which for things.
Yeah.
Or someone who can collect your mail, who for a person.
So that exercise really hammered home the basic choice of pronoun, depending on what you're referring back to, place, thing, or person.
Very practical.
Definitely. It connects the rule directly to meaning and context.
Then there was grammar exercise 1, matching sentence halves. That seemed designed to practice both identifying the noun and choosing the right pronoun.
Yes, and importantly, it reinforced that omission rule we talked about for defining clauses where the pronoun is the object.
Ah, right, the ones where you can leave the pronoun out. Exactly. The exercise highlighted examples like, Mrs. Jackson is the kind of teacher who that every student wants to have. You want to have the teacher, so teacher is the object, meaning who or that is optional.
Mrs. Jackson is the kind of teacher every student wants to have. Sounds fine.
Perfectly natural. And the other one was, is there any reason why manufacturers like to keep demand above supply? Manufacturers keep demand above supply for that reason. Reason is functioning like an object or complement here, so why can be dropped.
Is there any reason manufacturers like to keep demand above supply? Also sounds fine. Mastering when you can omit the pronoun makes your English sound much more fluent.
It really does. It's a subtle point, but makes a big difference.
Okay, then grammar exercise 2 involved rewriting pairs of sentences using non-defining clauses. This seems focused on sentence combining and adding richness.
It is. It teaches you to integrate extra information smoothly, making your writing flow better and sound more mature. The tip here is, if you have two sentences and one just adds extra detail about something in the other, think non-defining clause.
Like the example, my father lives in a small house full of ornaments. This makes it really difficult to clean. Combining them.
Ooh, he comes. My father lives in a small house full of ornaments, which makes it really difficult to clean. And remember that special use of which here.
Yeah, it refers back to the whole situation. The house being full of ornaments makes it hard to clean, not just the ornaments themselves.
Exactly. That ability of which to refer to a whole clause is such a useful tool for connecting ideas. The exercise also had examples using whose for possession.
My English teacher, whose lectures are very interesting, is leaving. The lectures belong to the teacher.
And where for places.
My parents arrived in New York in 1951, where they stayed for the rest of their lives. The place where they stayed.
And who for people, all requiring those crucial commas because the information is extra. It really helps practice that structure.
Definitely. Now, exercise 3, correcting mistakes. This sounds like gold dust for learners. Learning from common errors.
Oh, absolutely. Each mistake highlights a specific rule or pitfall. Let's go through a few key ones.
Okay. Error 1. Using which for a person. The woman which we met.
Symbol fix. The woman who we met tip. Always ask person or thing. Who for person, which for thing.
Error 2. Redundant pronoun. Language courses which I saw them advertised.
Get rid of them. Courses which I saw advertised. The which already represents courses as the object of saw. Don't add another object pronoun.
Error 3. Using that in a non-defining clause. Exhausting. That is not surprising.
Big no-no. Must be exhausting, which is not surprising. Remember, no, that with commas setting off extra info.
Error 5 was about awkward preposition placement. The one which in you have written.
Sounds awful. Make it natural. The one which you have written your lecture notes in. Preposition usually goes at the end in informal neutral style.
Error 6. Missing comma for non-defining info. Newspaper, which has a list.
If we already know which newspaper and the list is just extra info, it needs a comma. Newspaper, which has a list. Commas signal non-essential info. Their absence implies it's defining.
Error 7. Using informal what? Bread rolls what we had.
In standard English, use which or that for things. Bread rolls which that we had. What isn't typically used as a relative pronoun like this in formal or standard written English.
And error 8. Confusing who and whose. Person who life is full.
Needs to show possession. It's the person's life.
Yeah.
So the person whose life is full. Tip. If you can replace it with his life, her life, or their life, you probably need whose. Going through errors like this is incredibly valuable. It helps you spot and fix things in your own speaking and writing.
It really internalizes the rules. Okay, finally. Exercise 4 looked at a text about chocolate production. How did that illustrate relative clause use?
It showed how these clauses work together in a longer piece of writing to build a detailed picture. When you're describing a process or giving lots of information, relative clauses let you embed detail smoothly without endless, short, simple sentences.
So they make the writing more efficient and descriptive.
Exactly. The text used which and that to describe the cocoa beans, beans which that grow in pods, and the tree, the cacao tree, which that grows in equatorial regions, adding defining and non-defining details naturally.
And where for location?
Yep. Transported to factories where they are sorted. It clearly links the action, sorting, to the place, factories. The whole text demonstrates how these clauses create a rich, informative flow. They're essential for that kind of descriptive writing.
Wow, okay. We've certainly covered a lot of ground today, from the basic jobs of each relative pronoun
Who, which, that, where, when, whose, why.
to that absolutely critical difference between defining clauses, the essential ones with no commas, and non-defining clauses, the extra info, with commas, know that.
And the nuances like omitting pronouns sometimes, preposition placement, and those handy participle clauses.
Plus, drawing really practical lessons from those exercises, avoiding common mistakes, is key.
It really is, because these aren't just abstract grammar points. They are genuine tools. Understanding and using them well makes your communication so much clearer, more precise, more effective.
You can add layers of meaning, connect ideas smoothly, make sure your listener or reader understands exactly what you mean.
Precisely. It elevates your language.
So, here's something to think about as we wrap up. The next time you're reading something complex, maybe an article or a report, or listening to someone speak carefully, pay attention. How are they using relative clauses?
Can you spot the defining ones, the non-defining ones? Can you see why they chose that instead of which, or why they included a comma?
Does understanding this stuff change what you notice about how language works? And maybe, more importantly, can you now start using these tools yourself with more confidence?
Could this deep dive help you craft your own sentences with that extra bit of precision, ensuring your message lands exactly the way you intend it to? Something to mull over.